Have you ever woken up from a dream that was so weird, so completely out there, you just had to wonder what on earth was going on in your head? Or maybe one that just left you feeling off all morning. We all have these bizarre stories play out every night. But what if they're not random at all? What if there's a hidden structure, a predictable pattern to even the weirdest dreams? Well, that's what we're going to dig into, because a fascinating new theory suggests there is. And to really get it, we're going to walk through a real dream piece by piece.
Okay, so here's how it starts. Pretty calm, right? The dreamer is on this big wooden boat floating down a river, some kind of government project. A senior colleague is there, and there's this one small nagging little problem. They're supposed to meet an instrument specialist, but that person is missing. You know, it's a pretty low-key, stable scene. It's anchored in these long-term ideas about work, identity, that kind of thing. But pay attention to that tiny seed of conflict, that missing specialist.
And then the scene just shifts. Now the dreamer is looking at a friend's villa. And there's this feeling that the friend's wife has passed away, and because of that, the friend is now more free. But here's the twist. In real life, it was the friend who had actually died, and his wife who survived. The dream did what's called a polarity flip. It just swapped their roles. And this is where it gets really interesting. The dream is digging into this super complex emotional idea, freedom after loss, but it's doing it from a safe distance by literally inverting the facts. You can feel it, right? The conflict is definitely ramping up.
And then, bam! The dream just throws us right into this crowded, chaotic carnival. The street is packed with trailers, and you've got these coordinators frantically hitting ping-pong balls back and forth between them just to communicate. This right here, this is the climax. It's pure, short-term logistical stress. It's the perfect mental picture for that feeling of juggling a dozen urgent tasks at once. This is the absolute peak of the dream's conflict.
So let's recap. A boat, a flipped reality about a friend's death, and a ping-pong carnival. On the surface, it feels like total random nonsense, but is it? Or is your brain actually taking you on a very specific, structured journey with a very specific purpose? That is the big question.
And the answer, it turns out, lies in this really powerful new model of how dreams work. It's called the conflict arc theory, or if you want to get formal, the strained reference cycle. The core idea is that our dreams are actually these highly organized stories, and their whole job is to process the leftover stress from our day.
So here's the crucial idea, that emotional strain from your waking life, the stress and the little anxieties, it doesn't just vanish when you fall asleep. Instead, your brain grabs that stress and runs it through this cycle. It sends it traveling across your whole network of memories, letting it build up to a peak, that's the weird chaotic part of the dream, and then ideally, it resolves it, bringing you back to a more balanced state.
And this whole arc has 4 really clear phases that build on each other perfectly. First up, you've got initiation. That's the low-conflict, stable part, like the boat on the river. Then you get rising action. This is where the dream starts to engage with your deeper values and relationships, like that emotionally complicated scene at the villa. Third, the climax. This is where your recent day-to-day stressors completely take over, like that chaotic carnival. And finally, resolution. The dream is supposed to guide you back to a place of stability.
A really simple way to think about it is like a reverse ratio. Your dream starts and ends with the big, stable stuff. Your core identity, your foundational memories, your values, these are the anchors. But the middle of the dream, that big climax, that's fueled almost entirely by the small, immediate conflicts from your day. The email you forgot to answer, that logistical puzzle you're trying to solve, the coordination nightmare at work.
And this just brilliantly shows the purpose of the whole thing. Your dream is basically a therapeutic journey. It takes you from the safety of your deep self, makes you confront the messy problems of your day in this symbolic, metaphorical way, and then brings you back home to a state of calm. It's like your brain's own nightly problem-solving and memory filing system all rolled into one.
Okay, but this is where the whole idea gets truly fascinating. What if this process of consolidating complex problems isn't just about clearing out yesterday's stress? What if it's actually a key to creative genius? To see what I mean, we're going to travel back, way back, to the 12th century.
This is Omar Khayyam. Now, you might know him as a poet, but he was also a brilliant mathematician and astronomer who literally reformed the calendar. And a new idea, the Poetic-Consolidation Hypothesis, suggests that his famous poetry wasn't some separate hobby. It was the final phase of his scientific thinking. The poems were the resolution phase of his brain's conflict arc.
I mean, just look at this. The mental strain from his scientific work on astronomy and calendar reform, with all its complex cycles, that gets consolidated into these beautiful poetic motifs about the revolving sky and the cycles of time.
His hard work on algebra and geometric curves, that resolves into these rich images of bowls and circles and limits. The intellectual conflict of his day job was literally being processed and resolved into stable, beautiful poetry at night.
Okay, so this theory can explain the dreams of a 12th century genius, which is amazing. But more importantly, it can help you understand your own. This isn't just some abstract science, it is a practical toolkit for your own mind.
So here's how you can actually start using this. The next time you wake up from a dream you can remember, first, just try to identify the climax. What was the most chaotic or stressful part? Was someone chasing you? Were you trying to do an impossible task? Second, ask yourself, what daily stress does this remind me of? That carnival, for instance, is a perfect stand-in for a chaotic workday. Third, look for the resolution. How did the dream end? Did it end calmly? Did you get back to a safe anchor image? And finally, put all those pieces together and ask the big question, what problem was my brain trying to solve for me last night?
But we've all been there, right? You jolt awake, your heart's pounding, and you're right in the middle of the dream's climax. The carnival is still going full blast, the stress is at its absolute peak, and you never got to the resolution. That just leaves you feeling anxious and unsettled for hours.
Well, it turns out you can actually help your brain finish the job. There's a technique for this called waking microclosure. It's simple. First, identify that peak conflict. For our dreamer, it was the ping-pong coordination mess. Second, define one simple, concrete action you can take in your waking life to address it. For example, okay, first thing this morning, I'm going to send one clear email to the specialist. That turns the chaotic back and forth into a single, manageable action. And finally, just consciously visualize a return to a calm anchor from the dream, like being back on that quiet boat, maybe reading a book. You are literally, manually completing the resolution arc for your brain.
So the next time you wake up from some wild, bizarre dream, don't just brush it off as random nonsense. Try to see it for what it is, a brilliant, structured story your brain is telling itself to keep you balanced. And ask yourself, what conflict is my brain trying to solve tonight?